Hello everybody, my name is Mr. Scary Muffin, and I am joined by Max Douglas, aka Star Metroid. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, Scary Muffin. I mean, I'm a little terrified of the
uh,
scary Muffin who's sitting beside me. He's probably gonna toast me with his toast box.
Anyways, we are going to be checking out a couple of the top cut games from the VGC 2014 Washington Regional, which happened a couple of weeks back. And I know that you did pretty well in the tournament yourself, but we are actually not going to be watching any of your games. Instead, who do we got here?
We have Jason Winya, also known as Artie, and we have Tony Chung, known as Chinese Dude.
Okay, so we have Jason's team on the screen right now. And what do you know about? What do you see right here? Can you tell me?
Well, the first thing that sticks out is this lantern and the Manectric.
Mm.
And I've seen this strategy a lot. The lantern generally goes with a choice scarf and just soaks things, and then Manectric uses discharge. And Lantern's ability, Volt Absorb, heals it whenever it gets hit by electric attacks, and then because it soaks the opponent, they'll be weak to it instead of neutral, and then it lowers the damage output of their attacks that are of the same type.
So it's kind of a counter electric thing. And is electric really popular right now in the 2014 meta?
Oh yeah, because one of the most popular Pokemon right now is Rotom, which has two forms, Rotom Wash and Rotom Heat, and it has three other forms, but no one uses those.
I've seen some people use the Rotom Cut, the grass form as well. Some people. No, it's not very popular, mind you, but yes.
I've used it before.
But so the rest of his team, he's got a Talonflame, which is very popular as one of the Gen 6 Pokemons as well. He's got a Salamence, which has been fairly popular in the past couple of the regionals, starting with the winter regionals, as well as the Ferrothorn is also another one popularized by Ray Rizzle from that Virginia regionals back in the winter, and Azumarill, which started off being pretty popular and then kind of fell on the wayside, is now kind of rising back up in popularity again.
And one thing I have to wonder about is he has the set strategy of Lantern Manectric, and you have to imagine that the other four Pokemon are all set to deal with things that this strategy has a problem with.
Well, what kind of things would it have a problem with?
Well, first of all, anything that would have Volt Absorb or Lightning Rod that would have an immunity to electricity that you can't get rid of with Soak, either of those are going to be huge threats. So other Manectrics and like Raichu and other Lanterns are all going to be a threat.
All right, well, let's get right into the match. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, play. Alright, so there is Tony's team, and it looks like he's got potentially a Lightning Rod Raichu. I think actually most Raichus you'll see in competitive would be the Lightning Rod Raichu.
Yeah. Well, it's generally preferred over the other ability, Static, because Lightning Rod has a guaranteed effect, and it's a quite powerful one at that, while Static is only a slight chance, and they have to make physical contact. And because Raichu has such paper-thin defenses, if he takes a physical attack, he's probably getting knocked out.
Right. And we got three potential Megas on Tony's team here, Gengar, Scizor, and Gyarados. Most likely, I'm guessing, is going to be the Gengar.
And I already know the team, but when I faced it, I imagined that Gengar would be a Mega, but that Gyarados could potentially be a Mega as well. Right.
And the Lightning Rod helps out with the Gyarados as well, because it pulls away the lightning attacks away from the Gyarados, which it is 4 times weak to.
And this leaves Gyarados with only a rock weakness to deal with.
Now the other thing interesting to note is the Rotom, so there's 2 electric types on Tony, and also the Staraptor. But we don't get much chance to talk about it now, we're just going to see what's going to go on. Let's take a look at the leads as they pop on the screen right now. A little bit of communication problem, I think. There he goes.
Alright, there we go.
So
Tony
yeah,
chose not to dress up as trainer.
the default trainer. I know some people are using like a tournament cartridge, so that they don't have to worry about using their main cartridge, kind of thing. So lead off from Tony here is Gengar and the Raichu, and lead off from Jason is going to be Manectric and Azumarill.
Yeah. So right now we have 2 Pokemon with Lightning Rod on either side of the field. So if the Manectric avoids Mega Evolving, both of them are essentially locked out of using their electric attacks.
Right. But if the Gengar evolves here, then it's going to gain the Shadow Tag ability, which will prevent Jason from switching out his Pokemon. And normally there's lots of ways you can get out of that. You could be a ghost type, you can have the shadow tag ability as well, or you can use attacks like U-turn or Volt Switch. But Volt Switch will get absorbed by Raichu's Lightning Rod and effectively not allow the switch out.
It really gets rid
indeed.
of one of the major weaknesses of Shadow Tag.
Shadow Tag, right? And you were talking about Perish Trap as a potential thing here as well. And I know you ran a Perish Trap team actually yourself once upon a time.
I wouldn't say I ran it. It was more just I did an analysis on it because I wanted everyone to learn how to beat it by the time regionals came by, so I wouldn't face it as much.
So Hidden Power going on to Raichu here, most likely Hidden Power Ice, and Perish Song coming out from the Gengar. So this Perish Trap, basically you use the Perish Song, which sets a clock on all the Pokemon who hears the song, and in 3 turns they will faint. And normally you can switch out of it in order to avoid fainting, but because of Shadow Tag, you are now trapped in there, thus Perish Trap.
It's really the main strength of Gengar is that ability.
The fact that it could do both the Shadow Tag part and the Perish Song by itself.
Yeah, we haven't ever seen a Pokemon before that had both the trapping ability and the Perish Song attack.
But it looks like Tony's just going to give up the Perish part, the trap part of the Perish Trap here.
Not necessarily. If this Manectric Mega evolves on this turn, then the Raichu could have Volt Switched. Oh, but we see that doesn't happen.
Just a lot of protects going around. Raichu's. I think Jason really wants to get rid of that Raichu so that he can get his combo off with the Manectric and the Lantern.
And we see the Staraptor from Tony. And what Staraptor's been known to do is to use Final Gambit, which knocks itself out, but then deals damage equal to the amount of HP it had. And it'll have a Choice Scarf attached to it, so it'll be able to just take out one of Jason's Pokemon in exchange for itself.
So right now they're in a little bit of a predicament. The Raichu has protected and doesn't really have that much else to do at this point, since it can't use the electric attack, and it was already revealed Fake Out, and so Tony's going to switch that out, which also will remove the Perish the Perish Song count on that as well. And he switches back in the Gengar. Jason's going to take the opportunity when Gengar was not on the field to switch out to the Ferrothorn, and Staraptor is actually going to go with the U-turn here.
And interestingly enough, he chose to leave a Azumarill in instead of double switching, because apparently he just needs to get some pressure this turn.
Well, maybe he didn't think that Tony was going to switch the Gengar back in, or was that a pretty obvious move?
I would have expected him wanting to get the Gengar in. Yeah, having Gengar out when your opponent's on that Perish Trap clock is just a really bad situation to be in.
Right.
Because once 2 of your Pokemon go down, he can Perish Song again when the next 2 come out, and then they can't switch out of it.
So the Azumarill manages to get a Waterfall. It was intended for the Raichu, but the Raichu has switched out, and then the Staraptor used the U-turn to get out of there and brought the Raichu back in on the other slot. At the same time, Azumarill also took an Intimidate from that Staraptor when it came in before.
And because of that Intimidate, the Gengar was able to take the Waterfall without much trouble. It still has over half of its HP.
Yes. So, and at the end of this turn, you have to imagine that Tony is going to double protect here in order to wait out the Azumarill, or he's going to fake out one of them. Interesting, chooses to take the Iron Barbs and the Rocky Helmet damage here.
Well, the Gengar has a trick right now. We're about to see. I imagine. Oh, and it appears he's getting around the potential Disable.
Uses the Disable here.
The intention of... If you disable the opponent, they can't use the attack they used last turn. So if they were intending to use the same attack 2 moves in a row, then you can disable it the second time, and then they'll waste their entire turn doing nothing.
Right, so Jason read that pretty well then and chose to use the Aqua Jet, which will go before that, manages to get a little bit more chip damage onto the Gengar. But I wonder why Tony didn't just double protect there. Oh, maybe perhaps
he wants
Raichu.
To protect on the,
perhaps
he
Raichu doesn't
to
run
protect
protect
on the next turn.
But he doesn't have Perish Song up anymore on anything.
Yes, but once Jason sends in another Pokemon, he doesn't know what kind of situation he'll be in, and he wants to reserve the ability to protect on the next turn.
All right, fair enough. So Jason bringing back in the Manectric here, probably not the best choice, but I don't know what else he has in the back end there. If he has Rotom in the back, then Manectric's probably a better choice than the Rotom.
Yeah, Raichu really makes it difficult to use electric types effectively, especially for something like Manectric, which its best offense out of electric moves is Overheat, which you can only really use effectively once, because it lowers your special attack so much.
So Manectric's gonna evolve here and give up the Lightning Rod, which actually might make a difference since Rotom is now on the field. Raichu is now using that Protect. Sorry, I was wrong. I thought it didn't have Protect, but it does indeed have Protect.
I thought the same thing when I faced him in top 4.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, that's when it ended up costing me the game. I thought it would have Hidden Power Ice, so I never brought Garchomp against it.
Power Whip going in, double attack into the Raichu, and neither of them hits because Raichu is protecting. So excellent read there from Tony, and the Rotom is going to get a little bit. The Manectric used Discharge there and hit his own Ferrothorn, which paralyzed it, but did manage to get damage onto the Rotom, but also powered up the Raichu at the same time due to Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod not only...
protected last turn.
Oh right, Raichu protected, so it didn't even matter. It didn't get that power up. You're right. Ferrothorn going to protect here against the potential overheat from the Rotom, and Raichu is going to use Encore to force Manectric to use Discharge again, and now he's going to get the Lightning Rod boost. So Lightning Rod not only negating and redirecting lightning attacks, but also giving Raichu a special attack boost.
It's interesting to note that Raichu is faster than Manectric on this turn, and normally Manectric has a higher base speed, but this means that Raichu must have a speed increasing nature while Manectric doesn't.
Sure, so maybe a modest Manectric then. Rotom using Substitute, which is it's not something I typically see on a Rotom actually here. It's going to switch out, it's going to throw up the Substitute, take a little bit of life damage as a sacrifice, but will use the leftovers to heal back a little bit as well. And that actually puts Tony in a really good spot because neither Ferrothorn nor Manectric can get rid of that Substitute really easily.
And Ferrothorn can't use Leech Seed on it either.
Right. So Jason's going to reveal his last Pokemon, and it is a Salamence. Salamance's going to throw the Intimidate here, but that doesn't make a difference because both of them are special attackers. The Encore going on to the Ferrothorn here, which will force it to protect again. And this is one of the problems now of having a Pokemon that's a little bit slower. Tony anticipating perhaps the switch out and throwing a Will-O-Wisp, but reveals the Lumberry on the Salamence as well. So some good information which will be handy in this best of 3 series.
Well, as I mentioned with Overheat, because it lowers your special attack after each usage, it's dangerous to use it over and over again.
Right.
So he probably just went for the Will-O-Wisp because it would be guaranteed damage every turn on the Manectric.
Right, but Will-O-Wisp does have not a perfect accuracy, so there's a chance of missing when you throw that Will-O-Wisp. It's something that players will have to calculate whenever they're using it.
And Overheat doesn't have perfect accuracy either.
Oh, right, you're right. But I think Tony, given his position, didn't mind using the Will-O-Wisp because he's so well ahead right now. Manectric coming back in, going to throw another Intimidate out, but again, doesn't make a difference to these two Pokemon because they're special attackers. And Tony not afraid to lean on that Protect button a little bit. Draco Meteor coming, does read the attack on the Raichu and will Protect. And here comes the Discharge, which will power up the Raichu's attack.
Oh no, Raichu protected this turn.
Oh, right. You think I would notice, right?
Yeah, Lightning Rod, it gives you a boost in your special attack if you're hit by an electric attack, but if you have Protect up, you don't get the boost. However, if you Protect and they use an electric attack, it will still redirect it into your Protect.
Alright. Now Raichu, who's been, I think, double pumped up by electric attacks, is going to hit a Volt Switch onto the Salamence, and I think that's 4 moves revealed for the Raichu now. Encore, Fake Out, Protect, and Volt Switch.
Indeed. No Hidden Power Ice on that Raichu. So it has no way to actually damage things that are immune to electricity.
Right. But Salamence takes neutral damage from that lightning attack still. And Looks like Tony's gonna sacrifice the Gengar here, reading the double attack on it. Just wanted to get out there with some damage.
Mm-hmm.
Rotom comes back from behind the substitute. Is going to throw the Will-O-Wisp, also burns Manectric. So now both Salamence and Manectric will slowly tick down. Actually, Salamence, sorry, had the Lumberry Cure, so it's not burned.
Mm-hmm. But you can imagine there's probably going to be a discharge going onto it in the coming turns.
Right. But Salamence did reveal that it's not choice, so it can use other attacks other than Draco Meteor. You have to imagine he's probably running Stone Edge or Rock Slide, which it can probably use now. Since its own special attack dropped due to Draco Meteor.
There's also the possibility that it has Protect, because it's not going to be choice locked.
Right. I love that extreme close-up of the substitute. I think substitute is hilarious. If I were to have any Pokemon plushie, I'll probably get a substitute plushie.
Well, you can sub it in for any other Pokemon.
Exactly. I'm guessing yours would be Umbreon.
Yeah. Of course.
So Raichu coming back in here can throw out a free Fake Out, and will stop Manectric from hitting anything. But will eat another Draco Meteor, but this is a weakened Draco Meteor. Gonna take Raichu into the red, but Salamence is again gonna go down further. Discharge coming out from the Rotom is going to hit the Raichu, powering it up, and also do some chip damage, and enough to take out the Salamence as well. Judging by the damage from the Rotom, I'm going to guess that it's not very invested in attack at all. It's probably very bulky instead.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know from my games that it invests a good deal in speed, because it was able to outspeed my Mega Venusaur, which had a decent speed investment of its own.
Right, and it's not Choice Scarf or anything, because we do see it using Substitute and other moves throughout the entire time. But yeah, Jason here is going to be in a bind just because neither of these Pokemon really have a way of getting rid of the substitute from Rotom. And even though Rotom's not doing very much damage to Manectric, Manectric's on a clock here because it's burned. So I think pretty much Tony has this one in the bag. But all's not lost. Jason still has 2 games, and so it doesn't. So he'll probably play this one out just to see how much information he can get out of the rest of the game here.
Mm-hmm. Like just right now, he confirms that Rotom does indeed have the Overheat.
I believe Rotom Heat has to have Overheat. Am I correct?
No, Rotom forms do not actually have to use their signature move.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whenever you transform into a different form, you are prompted to learn a new move.
Right.
But you don't need to learn it.
Okay. He did try the Overheat onto the Manectric earlier, though, so I think that was confirmed as well. So that would be Will-O-Wisp, Discharge, Overheat, and Substitute. So no Protect on the Rotom, which is pretty important to note.
Mm-hmm. At the same time, Jason's team didn't have a lot of ways to apply pressure on the Rotom.
Right.
So the lack of Protect didn't hurt it as much.
Mm-hmm. So Tony's going to take this one 3-0, a pretty convincing win.
I don't believe we even saw Tony's 4th Pokemon.
The Staraptor.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So what kind of adjustments do you think Jason will need to bring here? Potentially he could bring in the Lantern, and without Manectric even, given that 2 of Tony's Pokemon are going to be Electric type.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to imagine that because that Raichu's putting so much pressure in, having something like the Lantern, and it's probably Scarfed to Soak, but it's also going to know water moves, like Hydro Pump or Scald.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a good strategy would just be for him to bring out the Scarf Lantern and just start swinging with it, and try to get as much damage in as possible to stop.
The Lantern will also be a fairly good answer for the Rotom Heat as well, being able to hit it for super effective.
Yeah, Lantern actually is able to deal good damage to all of the Pokemon on Tony's team.
I'm surprised that he actually didn't bring in the first game. And yeah, I wonder why that might be the case. Over on Tony's side, I don't know if he'll be bringing in the same team. It worked pretty well for him, but given what might be adjusted coming in here, what do you think Tony might be switching up?
Well, you imagine he has to keep the Raichu because of how effective it was during his games. And He could try to bring in something like Gyarados, because he'll have the lightning rod support the entire time.
Right. Except against the discharge, potentially.
Yes, that's true.
Alright, well, we'll see what is true and what's what right now. Tony is up 1 game in this best of 3 series. And nice fedora there for so indeed we do see the Lantern coming in as well as the Talonflame. Talonflame now is potentially questionable in my mind. It's got the priority Brave Bird, which will allow it to go first and hit for extreme damage, as well as the U-turn to get out of the Perish Trap. But given how many electric Pokemons are flying around the field, you have to assume that he's probably also has a Manectric now to redirect the electric attacks.
Yeah, he could just be baiting the electric attack with Talonflame and just be intending to switch out into Manectric right away.
Yeah, or even just switch out the partner to Manectric.
Oh yeah, that's true. He could do that instead, but at the same time, Talonflame isn't dealing a lot of damage. He could Brave Bird the Staraptor to reduce the amount of damage it can do with Final Gambit.
Right. And would the base speed of Talonflame be faster than the Raichu if both of them were invested into speed?
Talonflame has a higher base speed, but it would probably be an adamant nature because
was that was the Final Gambit?
Yeah, which means that the Talonflame wasn't going for any flying moves, so it was probably trying to Flare Blitz the Raichu anyways.
I think it was probably U-turning, potentially. To U-turn into the Manectric. But Tony's Staraptor is Choice Scarfed, so it will go before the Talonflame if it's not using a priority move. And just like that, Jason is behind 1 Pokemon. Actually, no, they're tied. They're tied at 3, but
Tony chose to make that 1-for-1 trade. So
right.
It must work into his overall game plan for winning the game.
But Tony still needs a way to deal with that Lantern, which might just be a Perish Song from Gengar here.
Because one thing that Tony's team benefits from is that while most of his Pokemon don't have a lot of offensive presence, if he needs to just deal with something, he can Perish Song and just wait for it to die.
Right, and a lot of people, when they make their team, they typically reserve 1 Pokemon, for example. Since it's a format where you have 6 Pokemon, but you only bring 4 into a battle, you have the opportunity to have a bench sitter just prepared for a specific matchup. For example, during the Oregon regionals, a couple people brought in Gudra to deal with rain teams.
Well, for
Tony, right.
For this team, I had a Charizard on my team for the sole purpose of making my opponent think that I would be using Sun instead of a Mega Venusaur.
Oh, okay. So here, the disable going on Lantern, which can effectively shut down Lantern if Lantern was choice, as you mentioned before. And
yeah, if Lantern's Choice Scarfed, then it's going to be forced to struggle for the next several turns.
So we'll see right now what the case is. But it is the Hydro Pump was disabled, so it couldn't do a move. Draco Meteor comes down on Gengar. It will do a decent amount of damage. I wonder if a second one will be able to finish it off, given now that Salamence has dropped in its special attack.
Well, it'll only be doing half as much damage this time.
Right.
So it looks like Gengar will have enough HP to survive, because it would have had to do about 70% for the second one to finish it off.
But if Lantern does struggle, it will still be able to double team onto the Gengar and finish it off.
Yes.
But going back to my previous thought, if people have brought something like a single Pokemon that could counter Tony's team, he could just Final Gambit it away and just get rid of it instantly.
Indeed.
And so
I think that's the purpose of having it on the team, is just to deal with those things you don't want to deal with.
So Tony anticipating a double here, and Lantern does indeed struggle, and will struggle into the Rotom, predicting the obvious Protect from Gengar, but does so little damage. Struggle, of course, using the attack stat, and Lantern is a special attacker, so it no doubt has a very low attack stat.
Yeah, I'd have to question why he struggled the Rotom, because while the Gengar did Protect, Lantern takes 25% of its HP in recoil just for using Struggle.
So if he swung into the Protect, he would have saved some HP?
Like he's actually done more damage to himself by attacking the Rotom.
Salamence now also no longer can do Draco Meteor, which is not as big of a threat.
If the Salamence did have a rock move, this would have been a good time to use it, because his attack stat has been unnerfed.
Yes, for sure. Will-O-Wisp going on Lantern, and Tony so far hitting that Will-O-Wisp 100%. Must be nice. I know some people out there would be jealous.
Yeah, so right now Jason's in a pretty bad spot because both of his Pokemon have their best move disabled.
Right.
And
what does Jason need to do here in order to make a comeback?
I'd say he needs to knock out the Gengar and then switch out his Pokemon so he can restore their stats.
Mm-hmm.
And in Lantern's case, be able to use Hydro Pump again.
Well, there's probably just one more turn of disable on the Lantern before he can use his moves again.
At the same rate, Gengar is still faster, so it can just disable a second time.
Right. So they do. So Jason should be thinking about getting rid of that Gengar ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if he doesn't, it depends on what he has in the back here to deal with the Rotom. The Lantern, no doubt, is probably not going to be able to out-survive the Rotom, given how much its burn damage is taking now.
Mm-hmm. In fact, if it struggles one more time, the damage will knock it out.
Right. Well, he basically has to struggle into a Protect then.
Mm-hmm.
Jason just trying to touch other moves, just wanting to not use the stuff. Shadow Ball going to come out. I think he's going to go for the Lantern, yep. Just to get rid of that threat to the Rotom. And Tony essentially has made a win condition for himself in that Rotom. It all depends on what Jason has on the back here. But the Gengar will go down, but a little bit too late as Jason's unable to switch anything out, given that he only has 2 Pokemon left.
Yeah, and given that Fire Blast crit, he might not have actually had the damage output to knock it out without the crit. Because the critical hit ignores the drop in its special attack.
Right. I wonder if actually Jason doesn't have a Rock-type move on Salamence, which is why he's still using special attacks here.
Well, it's possible. His last move could just be Dragon Pulse, so that he has a reliable attack that actually has 100% accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Over here now, as I mentioned before, it looks like the game is pretty much set here, as Tony has an excellent field position with being able to redirect the electric attacks.
Yeah, Manectric doesn't have very good ways to deal with the Rotom heat.
Right.
And even if you can take out the substitute, Tony can just make more. And if he burns the Manectric, he's going to be able to just sit there and wait for it to be knocked out.
Mm-hmm. And the Salamence is pretty much useless at this point, given that Draco Meteor is disabled and its own special attack is all the way down. And you can see that Tony thinks the same way. He's going to use the fake out that he has on the Manectric.
Then again, if he gets more critical hits, he could have a chance.
That's true. Tony is going to set the burn on Salamence and probably just focus most of his attacks onto the Manectric. Oh, of course, the Salamence has the Lumberry to remove the burn right away. But
it's
now
interesting that he prioritized burning the Salamence, because he saw the Lumberry in Game 1.
Maybe he's just going to burn it again.
That could be his plan. He could be afraid of Jason having a rock move like Stone Edge.
Mm-hmm. Salamence has potentially... we've only really seen 2 moves from that Salamence, which is Draco Meteor and Overheat. I don't think we've seen anything else.
Mm-hmm. We don't even know if it carries Protect yet.
Yeah. Well, you know, by process of elimination, probably is going to have a Protect and... well, actually, if you had a Protect, you probably would have used it by now. Wouldn't you think?
Well, no, if he protects with the Salamence, and the Raichu's still faster, so on the next turn after that, it would be able to Encore the Salamence and force it to protect turn after turn after turn.
Mm.
And with only 2 Pokemon left, that is a very dangerous spot to put yourself in.
Yeah, that Raichu's Encore being very threatening just by having its presence.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you guys who don't know, what Encore does is that the last successful move that your opponent did, they will be forced to use that move for the next 3 turns. And that actually pairs really well with Gengar's Disable as a potential combo as well. So that he could Encore a Pokemon and then disable that move, so then they'll be forced to struggle for 3 turns. Especially if the Shadow Tag is up. And it looks like Raichu's just going to go for the Encore anyways here and force Salamence to use Fire Blast again. Fire Blast not only doing so little damage, but it does get the burn on the Raichu.
The burn will actually be doing more damage than Salamis' attacks are at this
Yeah.
rate.
But not only that, the Fire Blast also has a sketchy accuracy rate as well.
But as we've seen on Tony's side, 85% accuracy can just work out.
Yeah. He's hitting those Will-O-Wisps left, right, and center. You think they're 100% accurate.
Don't we all wish?
Oh, yeah. But it looks like Jason's going to play this out, and he might as well, since it is his elimination match, and miracles can happen, hoping for those crits, as you mentioned before. The crits will ignore any stat drops as well as anything like burns or intimidates or other things that might have dropped their stats. But other than that, I think Raichu is just going to continually swing with Encores, simply because he can't use his only attack move, which is the Volt Switch. So gonna throw the Encores everywhere and protect every other turn.
Which, with Jason's Pokemon being burnt, all he has to do is just wait it out.
Only one of them is burned, but I expect the Will-O-Wisp coming out here now.
The one thing Tony does have to be careful of is the timer. Because Jason, while he looks like he's in a bad position, he does have more Pokemon remaining.
That's right.
So if the timer runs out, he'll win as long as both of his Pokemon are still standing.
So there's 4 minutes left now on the clock, as you can see on the screen there. Each turn, the maximum time to think is how long? 15 seconds?
You get 45 seconds.
45 seconds. So potentially, if he can wait out 5 turns, I don't know.
And there's also move animation, which takes time.
Rotom could use the overheat on the Manectric to deal with it.
Yeah, one way Tony could actually win is if the Salamence had Rest as one of its moves. Because we saw a Lumberry, which means that a Rest could have been one of the moves it carries. And this would allow it to fully heal itself and ignore the burn.
Right.
And then it could just continue to do this to stay at full HP.
So if time runs out, the tiebreaker is done based on how many Pokemons are left on the field, and then the secondary tiebreaker is based on remaining HP as a percentage of your total team's HP.
And as we saw, Jason took the full time to input his moves, recognizing that this is the only way he can possibly win.
Well, he's Encore locked right now, isn't he? So he could just wait out, and the game will automatically choose the moves that he knows it's going to choose.
Yeah.
But Overheat coming out on the Manectric will take that out, and now it's going to be a battle between the Salamence and the Rotom. And if you mentioned if Salamence does have Rest, the very last turn would be the time to use it to bring itself back up. And
well, he could use it now and then hope to wake up before the last turn and then use it again on that turn.
Yeah, he also has an opportunity to do very insignificant damage to the Rotom. The Rotom
Draco Meteor could put some good work in.
If he's still not Fire Blast locked. Otherwise, the Rotom's probably going to swing with a Thunderbolt in order to chip away at the Salamence.
Discharge.
Oh, Discharge, right. Salamence does have access to his Draco Meteor now, so it's going to throw in some damage to see how much it actually does. It is now -4 on its special attack. Wow, it's still doing significant damage. Now it's going to be at -6. And Tony electing to use the substitute here, and that actually might make a difference because his HP has dropped quite a bit.
At the same time, he's getting leftovers recovery while Salamence is taking burn damage.
Right.
Now, on that last turn, had the Draco Meteor got a critical hit, it would have dealt enough damage that Rotom probably wouldn't have been able to make a substitute, allowing Salamence a chance to finish it off on the next turn with another Draco Meteor.
So Jason actually had a solid chance there, just depending on the roll of dice. Jason actually not using the time here to play out the turn.
I think he's given up at this point. He would have to get 2 Draco Meteor crits and survive a discharge.
I also think that they're also friends, and you don't want to time out a friend, kind of thing, when you got played.
Well, as we see from the timer, they only have enough time for one turn regardless.
Right. Yes, it's depending on whether they want to wait out this turn or not.
I can't imagine any reason to wait out.
Going for the rain dance.
Salamence reveals that one of its 4 moves was Rain Dance.
Interesting. I wonder why that would be the case. Maybe to help with the electric attacks.
Well, it's probably
or the
for
water
the
attack. Yeah.
For Hydro Pump.
And Salamence will get KO'd by the burn. Was there anything else that you think Jason would have been able to do here? He did bring in the Talonflame perhaps to deal with the Perish Trap potential, but I don't really see what else Tony could have had, Jason could have done in order to face against the team. Seemed like it's just a really, really bad matchup for Jason.
Yeah, his team just unfortunately is not well suited to deal with Tony's because he just relies on electric attacks far too much.
And Lightning Rod Pokemons aren't really that common right now in the meta. But apparently there was a lot of Raichus in the Washington Regionals, from what I heard.
Well, I only saw one.
And well, I mean, Jason managed to get past the field into the top cut anyways. So when we come back, guys, we will be looking at a top 4 match. And then after that, we'll be going to the finals. So thanks for joining me there, Max, and we'll see you guys next time.